going to go ahead and get started. I really appreciate you guys joining in today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Royce Williams. I am a real estate agent here in the Tampa Bay area. I've been an agent for 14 years. I specialize in working with first-time home buyers. So anything first-time home buyer related, all the struggles, all the obstacles. A lot of my clients, this is the first time that they're making, their biggest purchase. And so there are a few, obstacles to overcome. And so I have all the experience in overcoming them. And so that is what led me to create the Clear to Close Homeownership Academy. And also what you're tuning in this today is our Realty with Roy's Summer Homeownership and Financial Literacy series, where we cover various topics in the homeownership and financial literacy realm. So today we will be covering how to purchase or how to buy a new construction home. I'll be going over all the details. Today, I will be teaching from my ebook, the how-to guide to buying new construction. There's tons of information, so I want to welcome you. Let's go ahead and get started. I won't delay any further. Just let's make sure that you all can see my screen. I want to make sure that because it's a lot of information that we'll be covering. So if you can't see my screen, please bear with me though, because I am navigating multiple screens. So if you feel like I am stuck on the screen and I am talking about something else, just let me know in the comments. Then I'll be able to catch up. I am learning all of this, so I am trying to navigate all of these screens at once. Those of you who are on Instagram, I am teaching live on how to purchase a new construction. You can see the actual material that I'm presenting here if you go to YouTube or if you go to Facebook, or you can just go to my bio and click the link to register on the Zoom, and you can join in on Zoom. So let's go ahead and get started. So buy a new construction home. The reason I am talking about this today, because right now in today's economy, new construction is the cheat code, right? Home ownership is, home prices, they've come down, but they're still nowhere near pre-pandemic rates. Same thing with interest rates as well. Prices and rates are still up. And so home ownership on affordability is kind of tough right now for a lot of people. And so what I've been doing, and a lot of my first time home buyers especially are doing, is buying new construction, because there are a lot of perks to buying new construction. I will mention a couple of them now, but I'll go more deeper later. But the main reason that you have a lot of people buying new construction right now is a lot of the builders, they have heard the complaints and the concerns of a lot of the buyers, and they're listening and they're providing solutions, right? And so one of the solutions is the builders are buying down the rates. Period, point blank, period. Like right now, I have a builder who I just received an email from who is buying down the rate to 2.99%. That is all 30 years. That is not even like a 2-1 buy down or 3-2-1 buy down. That's none of that. It's 2.99%. Plus, on top of that, the builder is also paying closing costs. So essentially, if you are a person who is looking to purchase a home and interest rates, which are really the drive for your monthly mortgage payment, are up, and you're looking to afford or purchase something, you can get into a home a lot easier with buying new construction, because the builders are buying down the rates, which helps lower the monthly mortgage payment. Also, the other barrier to entry, which is the out-of-pocket expenses that are required, they're also providing those to you as well. So it's kind of like a double win-win type situation. And so that's what a lot of my buyers are doing. But there are some tips that you need to know in order to be able to purchase a home, a new construction home, efficiently, because it's definitely different from buying a resale home. There's a lot of benefits, but there are also some cons to purchasing new construction as well. So let's get into it. All right. So this, for those of you who are on YouTube, Facebook, and on Zoom, you can see my screen where I'm showing you the ebook that I wrote. I want to make sure that you guys understand there's quite a few pages in here. Again, we won't go through everything, but I want to make sure that we can see that there is quite a bit of information for you to cover. In this ebook, I cover new construction versus resale. So I talk about the benefits of each. I also go over the new construction buying process, because that process is different. The options for financing are also different. Even though you can use some of the same loans to purchase a new construction home, there are some differences. And I'll talk about that, especially as it relates to being able to utilize the builder's incentives, which is the 2.99% interest rate, because a lot of first-time home buyers are looking for down payment assistance. And if you want to get the 2.99% interest rate, you cannot use down payment assistance to be able to take advantage of that program, at least in Florida. So I will be talking a little bit more about that. I will be talking about budgeting when you're buying new construction, because a lot of people don't know you can actually go over budget when you're trying to buy a new home, because there are different types of new construction that you can buy. There's a to be built, and then there's also inventory homes. So I'll be telling you a little bit more about that. Research and planning for your new home, negotiating with builders. A lot of people don't know you can actually negotiate with builders. You don't have to accept what they offer, although a lot of times they're already offering good deals. And I think a lot of the builders, they want to present themselves, and it is a good deal, but they want to present themselves as if that's the best you're going to get. But if you're a savvy buyer and you have a savvy agent on your side, you can actually get a lot more than what they're offering you. You need to understand the contract. Builders' contracts are a lot longer and more detailed. There's a lot more disclosures than there are in resale contracts. So that's very important to make sure that you're reading all of that information. And then I'll also be talking about the whole closing process when you're looking at buying new construction. All right, so let's do it. So there are a lot of benefits to buying new construction, right? And one of the major benefits is your new construction, you can customize your home. So depending on the type of home that you buy, you can actually go in and customize your home. So for example, if you're doing a to be built, and let's go ahead and get that out the way right now, the to be built versus the inventory homes. So a to be built home is a home where you, and let me back up real quick. We're not talking about custom homes. Custom homes are totally different from new construction production builds. And the biggest difference is a custom home, you can actually hire a developer. You know, you have your own land or you want to buy land. They have several different floor plans that you can choose from, even as a base. Or if you have your own floor plan, you can come in and tell them you want to build it, make your different customizations. They have an architect on staff who can make those customizations for you. That's, you know, complete custom home. What we're talking about today is production homes, which you go to a builder, let's say Lennar or DR Horton or Ashton Woods, Starlight. These are all production builders. They already have a set amount of floor plans for you to choose from. Some of the builders are a little bit more customizable than others. For example, you know, Ashton Woods has homes where they have floor plans, but there are different structural options that you can choose that are within the one, like they're already pre-planned. So let's say instead of a, you know, it comes with the standard feature is a shower, but you want a tub. They may have an option, a structural option to add a tub, but you can't go in and customize the home how you want to customize it. Inventory home, which is still production, is a home that the builder has already pre-planned. They've already picked all the options and they're just selling the home as is. It's still brand new, but you don't have the option to change any of the details. And so these are the two types of homes that we're actually talking about. We're not talking about custom homes today, because that's a whole different realm for a whole different class. Okay. So when I talk about customization, as one of the advantages of new construction, you have the ability to customize a home and pick different structural options and actually different finishes and features as well. If you're doing a to be built, you actually have the option to pick the lot that you want. Remember, all of these things come at a premium. And so you have the option to pick the lot that you want. You want to pick the floor plan. You can actually even pick the elevation of the home, and elevation is how the home looks on the outside. They have different options. So if you want stone versus beachy, if you want bead board, like there's different options that the builder has. You can choose all of that. And if you want quartz countertops versus granite, things like that. Those are the different customizations you can do with new construction. And a lot of people like that because you can kind of personalize the home. New construction homes are also more energy efficient, meaning they're built to the latest code. So like when it comes to electricity, especially here in Florida, it can get really hot. A lot of times we run the air full time all year. And so if you have a brand new home, you know, you have dual pane windows, you have blown insulation in the roofs, you have some roofs have the tin or the foil lining. Like these are all things that help you save electricity and be more energy efficient so that your bill isn't as high. Technology. A lot of the new construction homes now are coming with smart features. So, for example, a smart garage. They're coming with smart doorbells. They have Alexa already built in. A lot of these homes have these features you don't have to add on versus if you were buying a resale home. Also, your home comes with the warranty. This is probably one of the biggest benefits of buying a new construction home is your home comes with the warranty. Usually, most builders, they have what's called a 1 to 10 warranty, which is the first year everything's covered. So if you have any issues with the home outside of items that are normal wear and tear, so like if your caulking goes away or if you put a dent in the wall, those are normal wear and tear. But if anything happens with like a crack in the ceiling or anything crazy, they will come and fix it. And that's the first year. The second year is anything behind the wall. So like your AC, your plumbing, your roof, all of those things are covered. And then you have a 10-year structural warranty on a new construction home that covers the foundation and then the walls. And so this gives a lot of buyers a peace of mind knowing that even if the home has issues, you have a warranty that's already included. This is extremely beneficial, especially to first-time home buyers, because a lot of them are coming from a place where they're used to renting, and the landlord is the one that is covering all of these repairs. So you just make a quick call. That's not the case when you're a homeowner. A homeowner, that's your responsibility to fix the house. And so knowing that if anything happens, you kind of have a smoother transition into purchasing a new construction home. That way you don't have to kind of worry about some of the things a resale person would have to worry about. And the home is brand new. So, it shouldn't really have any issues. But I will tell you from being a person that has purchased a few new construction homes myself, these homes are not perfect. They're built by human beings. And so you do need that warranty. Things do happen, but having that peace of mind to where you don't have to worry about fixing it or coming out of pocket, especially after you just drop all that money, purchasing the home with the down payment and the closing costs, if you had to pay closing costs, like you don't want to have to worry about fixing anything after, you purchase your home. Also, the last, well, not the last, but another big advantage of buying new construction is homeowners insurance. Your homeowners insurance is a lot cheaper. There's less risk to homeowner insurance companies when you have a brand new home, because one is built to the latest code, and then two, there shouldn't be any issues with your home being that it's brand new. So you get to save money in your monthly mortgage payment by purchasing a new construction home, because your homeowner's insurance should be a lot less. Now, we do live in Florida. Florida homeowners insurance has gone up a lot because we are more riskier with all of the hurricanes that we have and the flooding. But if you're buying a new home versus a resale home, you're always going to win with the new home as far as your homeowner's insurance and it being lower. Now, some of the disadvantages of buying a new construction home is there could be delays, like, especially in Florida, like around this time, we're in hurricane season, building can be delayed based on the weather. And in Florida, typically in the summertime, it rains a lot. So you have to plan accordingly and be flexible when it comes to your deadlines and as far as the completion date. There may be building delays, okay? So make sure you always have a plan A, B, and C when it comes to where you're going to be in the event that, your home isn't completed on time. Another disadvantage of buying new construction is there's usually limited established amenities. So if you're a person that really wants amenities in your community, especially if you're buying in a new community that recently opened, these amenities may not be available right away because they're still building them. Now, most of the time, when you have a new community, the builders typically in that community building homes anywhere between 2, sometimes 10 years, depending on how long it takes and how many houses they build. If you're like 5 years in, a lot of times the amenity center is already built. But if you're like, first year in, the amenity center may not be there. So, that's something that you may have to wait on. Additionally, there's a lot of uncertainty. If your home isn't built yet, so, let's say you're purchasing a home based on just the floor plan and you're building in a brand new community, don't have a model. Some people aren't visual enough to see or imagine what it would look like when the house is done. So you may be actually purchasing a home from just a floor plan. I will tell you, in that scenario, if you, let's say you're buying a community, you like a specific floor plan, they don't have any in inventory and they don't have any models, look to see if that builder is building in other communities, because they may have that same home in another community that you can actually walk through and get a physical visual of the home. Because, you know, this isn't something that you can just return. Like if you go on the contract and you just change your mind, like they want that money. Your deposit is at jeopardy. So you want to make sure that you're sure when you're making a purchase. Obviously, there are instances where, you know, maybe you don't qualify or whatever, and you can get your money back. But if that's the case, like it's on a case by case basis. Just think that I'm buying this home, and if I change my mind, they're taking my money. So make sure that you do anything that you need to do in order to be totally sure of what it is you're trying to do. Okay. And another thing is, one more disadvantage of buying a new construction community is that the community is unfinished. You may be living in a construction zone for months, you know, to a year. The one good thing that a lot of builders do is they build in phases. And so like they try to make it to where all of the homes are being built together so that they're moving out of your way as they're building more homes. But I will say I've had a couple nails in my tires. I would tell people who are living in a community that is still being constructed, let's say they're, you know, close to your home or next door, and you have to drive through the construction zone, just try to stay in the middle of the street, because a lot of the nails and things like that be on the side of the road, so you can kind of limit the puncture that you get. The builder does not cover that. So, you know, you get a nail in your tire, that's something that is your own personal responsibility to fix. Okay. Do I have any questions up until this point in regards to buying a new construction home? All right, so let's move on. I did talk already about the differences between custom homes and production homes. Remember, custom homes, you literally customize everything. Production homes, the builder has a set amount of floor plans with a few structural options. I will say though that a lot of builders, especially the ones that are building homes that are supposedly more affordable, they are leaning towards just doing inventory homes, meaning they are able to buy all the products in bulk, and it's cheaper for them to just do that and build the homes versus you coming in and changing every little things here and there, as far as like, okay, I want this sink and I want that door. It's just easier just to put the same products in all of the homes. And so a lot of the builders, especially your DR Hortons and your Lennars in Florida, because we're in Florida, this probably translates overall, but I'm being specific for Florida. And you can fact check me based on where you live. But a lot of them are leaning towards inventory homes because they're able to purchase a lot of the materials in bulk. So if you're a person that wants to be able to customize everything, then you need to look into a to be built home. If you're like, hey, just give me what's good and I want the best deal, then you need to look at purchasing an inventory home. Now, I will say a pro tip right here. If you are buying an inventory home, you're always going to get the best deal. Okay. When it comes to pricing, once the home is completed and done by the builder, every day, every week, every month that home is sitting unsold, the builder is losing money. So you will see a lot more discounts, wink, wink, on inventory homes because they're looking to get those homes sold. So if you're a person, you know, that loves an inventory home and you need to move fast, you're going to get the best deals. They usually have, and also this is where you would get the discounted interest rates as well, because those typically happen only on the inventory homes, because you cannot lock in your rate once you're more than 30 days out from closing. And so, you know, they need to know that you're going to close within a certain time frame in order to be able to guarantee the discounted interest rate. So if you're looking to buy an inventory home, and there's tons of really nice inventory homes, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of builders are starting to lean more towards that anyway, you're more likely to get a better deal. Okay. Just a quick tip. Now, for those of you who don't know the difference as far as like what a resale home is just a previously loved home. And it's just, you know, there's different benefits to a resale home, but I won't get into that today as far as like, you know, for time purposes. But a resale home is anything you buy on the market that, you know, has one owner, right? And I will tell you, when it comes to deals, a lot of buyers are seeing And it's always kind of been the case, but it's even more so now, given that the market is just insane. But it is, shifting in most cases, and in already the case in a lot of markets where it's a buyer's market and buyers have more negotiation power. But one of the things that a lot of people like about purchasing new construction is that they're able to pretty much, get the best deals, because builders, when you're dealing with one seller, this is their baby, right? They can't really think logically when it comes to negotiation. Let me not say that. They're thinking more emotionally, because this is that one house that they're selling, versus a builder who can spread out losses if they have to take a loss over a multitude of houses that they're building. So your negotiation is a lot easier when it comes to working with a builder. But I will say, when it comes to a newer community, builders typically don't like to lower their prices, because if they have, let's say they're on house number 10 and they have 200 more homes to go, they don't want to lower the price because it affects their future values, the future values of the homes that they're building. So where you're going to see a lot of benefits for you if you're buying new construction is in the features, in the closing cost money, in the reduced interest rates. That's where you can really get to start negotiating and getting more from the builder, because they may hold tight on their price. Now, that doesn't mean they don't lower the price. Remember what I told you, when that house is just sitting unsold, they're going to do what they have to do. But if it comes to like a house that's going to be done a few months down the line, where you're going to get a lot of your added benefits is if you're asking for more money towards closing and, different other features, things like that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about things that you may not even think that you can negotiate into a deal a little bit later. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the process of purchasing a new construction home, right? So, when you're buying new construction, the initial stages is, of course, you want to connect with a real estate agent. Okay, the agent is going to be your best option when it comes to knowing about the different communities that are available for you to purchase in. Remember, a lot of the production builders typically build the same homes, but in multiple locations. So, for example, let's say you want to buy a home in a particular area, and you fall in love with this particular floor plan, but it may be out of budget. If you're a little bit flexible, or a lot of bit flexible in your location, you may be able to purchase that same home in another community for a lot lower price, because real estate is location. So you can very well get the same house for 10, 20, $30,000 cheaper in another community. You just have to be a little bit more flexible as far as being willing to travel. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about the different communities, and when you're looking at different floor plans, look to see if those floor plans are built in other areas, and you can still get the floor plan you like if it's not affordable in your maybe first preferred location. Also, if you are searching for communities or you're looking for new builds specifically, there's a website that's called newhomesource.com, and that website is built solely for searching new construction homes. So if you want to see what homes are available, you just put in your search criteria, go to newhomesource.com, and you'll be able to find all of the new builds in your area. Now, I will say that website doesn't really update for the latest inventory list. So if you find a community that you like, just search on Google and go directly to the builder's website. That way you can get the most latest up-to-date information on what they have, the pricing and all that stuff. But newhomesource.com is really good for finding out about the different the different builders and communities that are available based on the criteria that you put in. You do need to get pre-approved for a mortgage. What I usually do for my clients is we don't just go out looking at new construction, right? You need to get pre-approved first. And so what I typically like to do is we'll go with an outside lender, because you need to know what your starting point is before you go looking at just random houses, because what you don't want to do is fall in love with a house that is out of your price range, or underestimate what you can qualify for and be looking below what you can actually get approved for. So you definitely need to reach out to a lender. Your real estate agent can assist you with that. But what I want to say is a caveat to this is that um, typically, in order to take advantage of the builder's incentives, that is that down payment, the closing cost incentives, and also the rate buy downs, you do need to go through their lender. So a lot of builders have their own lending company, and they really do it just for ease of the process in order to get the home sold. And most of the time, literally right after you close, you don't make one payment to that builder's lender, because they sell your loan to another company that will, um, manage your mortgage. But in order to take advantage of the different incentives that the builders offer, they usually have that attached to you using their lender. Now, you still are free to use whomever you want, so you never want to feel like you have to go through a specific person, but you do have the option of going with a third party lender. Now, if for any reason, let's say you go and you pre-qualify with the lender for the builder and they don't approve you, and you find someone that is outside of the lender's loan officers that will approve you, typically what they can do, sometimes it may be reduced, but they will honor the incentives because their company couldn't get the job done, but you did find someone who could approve you and go ahead and close. So just know that you have options when it comes to that. But a lot of times what I tell people is you definitely need to be aware that if you go with the outside lender initially to get a pre-approved, you may have to pre-approve again if you want to use the builder's lender. And you do take a hit on your credit, but it's not anything that's crazy. And definitely if you're pulling your credit within a certain time frame, they kind of count it as one. I don't want to give you a quote on the time frame because that changes. I'm not a lender, but you can do it and not have an issue. Um, in the initial stages of buying a home, you definitely want to make sure that you focus and you have a clear vision of what it is you want, because there are a lot of builders out there and you can easily get distracted when it comes to all of the options that are available to you. You definitely want to research the different builders that are available. Go ahead and read some reviews, get some, feedback from other people who may have purchased from a builder. Me personally, I bought with DR Horton and MI, so I can speak personally to that, but I have had buyers who bought with other builders who can personally speak to them. I will tell you though, when you are looking online and reading reviews, definitely take everything with a grain of salt, because most of the time the people who are disgruntled are more inclined to actually leave a review. So you're going to go online. You're not going to see one builder that doesn't have negative reviews, just to keep it a buck. But the benefit of it is I would say focus more so on the reviews of the customer service. How do they handle these issues? Are they responsive? Do they answer? Do they make it easy for you to reach out to them? Those are the things you need to know, because like I said, these homes are built fairly quickly. Most of the time, it takes for a production home, depending on the size, 4 to 6 months to build. It's still human beings building these homes. No one's perfect. So there are issues that come up, but more important than the issue sometimes is how are they being handled. And that's why I think too, you need to definitely do your research, tour a few models. You want to see the quality of their builds, look at the baseboards, think about the materials that they're using. Is it, in Florida, is it block, on the first floor? Is it block on both floors? Like, all of those things matter, okay, when you're thinking about deciding on what home you want to buy, okay? So moving on, we want to talk about to the next phase of thinking about a community that you want to choose. Remember, I told you a lot of these builders, they build in multiple communities, right? So you can literally get the same house in different communities, but the difference is location. What are you close to? How are the schools? Are they, local amenities that you can take advantage of? What are the amenities in the community? Not all communities have the same amenities. So if you need to have a pool, and that's very important for you to have a pool, a gym, and all of these things, you need to make sure that you're thinking about that when you're considering the community that you choose, right? Now, you want to make sure that you pay attention, because a lot of these communities have HOA fees. And so if you like a lot of amenities, just know that you're going to pay for them. Okay. Um, and some of the amenities include parks and things like that as well. If you're in a community, phase three, if you're in a community and you're looking at a particular model, you will, if you're doing an inventory or inventory home, you essentially are going with that agent and you're looking at the different homes that they have available. But if you are looking at a to be built home, you will look at a lot first. Now, just so you know, lots do are come at a premium. A lot of builders sometimes will have lots that are zero extra, and most of the time those are the lots that may be backed up to other homes. And but if you're looking at a premium lot, let's say a lot that's in a cul-de-sac or a lot that backs a conservation or a pond, those usually come with an extra premium. Sometimes the premium is as little as $2,500, and sometimes the premium can be up to 25,000. I've seen back in the day 30,000 for a lot premium. So just know that when you're looking at to be built homes and you're shopping online, which you'll a lot of times see when you're looking at a particular floor plan that you're interested in, it'll say starting price. Once you look at starting price, that's not including any of the finishes updates that you do. That's not including the lot. That's not including if you choose a more expensive elevation. So if you want stone instead of the standard stucco, like those are things that increase your price. Okay. And so once you choose the house that you like, the floor plan, and if you're buying not an inventory home, but you're buying a to be built and you choose your lot, you need to go to contract, right? We already talked about the pre-approval price process and you having to go through one of their lenders. So essentially, if you go to a model home, you find all of these things, you find a house, you pick everything, you can actually call the lender while you're there because they usually have a lot of lenders on call that will take your application and pre-approve you on the spot. So typically you can find out fairly quickly right there if you qualify to purchase. Not all lenders require you to get a pre-approval up front. Not all builders require you to get a pre-approval up front. It depends on the builder that you go to, but most of them will require you to have to get a pre-approval and then you'll go to contract. Once you get your pre-approval, this is where the negotiation starts. And so I always tell my buyers, look, don't get too happy about nothing. Keep that poker face because what you don't want them to see is your total enthusiasm. You can be excited, say how you feel, but you don't want to get too enthusiastic because you want to have a little bit of a poker face so that we can negotiate later. So some of the things that I like to negotiate for, remember I told you a lot of times builders may not necessarily lower the price unless it's like an inventory home. But let's say, so let me figure out, I want to say this in a way that is not too confusing, and definitely let me know if I need to repeat anything that I'm saying because this part can get a little confusing. Depending on the type of loan that you choose to go through. So like you can use all of the loan programs that are available to you on a resale home are also available to you on a new construction home. Let's just get that part out the way. But depending on the type of loan that you use and how much money you are putting down, there are certain limits to how much the builder can contribute to your closing costs. So for example, let's say you're buying a house that's $100,000 for easy math, and you put down a standard 3.5%. And this is FHA. FHA loans allow you to get up to 6% of that purchase price back from the seller. So the builder can contribute up to $6,000 back to you. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because if you go to a builder and they're saying, hey, guess what? We're offering $4,000 towards your closing costs. You as a buyer going FHA putting 3.5% down know that you can get 6%. That's within the limits. So when you're going to negotiate, you can say, thank you, builder, for your $4,000, but I am countering you or I'm submitting an offer for $6,000. What does that $6,000 do? It allows you either to add more options into your home if you're looking to add more options. It allows you to come out of pocket less money, meaning potentially that $6,000 can actually cover all of your closing costs. A lot of buyers don't know that they can ask for more than what the builder is actually offering, but you have to be strategic and you have to know the rules, right? Guess what? Conventional, you put 5% down. If you're putting 5% down, the max the builder can contribute to you is 3%. So let's say on that same house, and the builder is offering $4,000, you only can get $3,000 from the buyer. So you have to know where you're dealing. And in that case, maybe you may want to see if they'll maybe take the price of the home down $1,000, something like that. So you have to be very savvy when it comes to negotiating. Also, too, you can also ask for more flex money. You'll have some builders, especially if you're doing a to be built, they may offer you additional money to use towards options. So let's say they'll give you $10,000 to use in the design center. The design center is where you actually go to pick all of your options that you want to buy. So if you want quartz counters instead of granted, if you want the upgraded light fixtures, if you want brown cabinets instead of white cabinets, like there's a design center that you can go to and pick all of those options there. And so sometimes the builder would give you a little spending money to use there. And what I would tell you though is be very careful, because a lot of times in that design center, that's where everybody rack up. You can easily go over budget because one, the builder's options are going to be a lot more expensive, because they have to mark it up. They're getting it from a third party. And if you're getting it from them, they're going to mark those up. So what I would tell somebody who's on a budget at the design center, make sure that you have a list of the items that are most important to you. And those items typically should be the ones that you wouldn't want to change after you move in. So like flooring, you definitely may want to say, hey, let me just go ahead and get the builder to do the flooring. Let me go ahead and get the builder to do the countertops. A backsplash, you can add that easily. Now, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if you're looking at budgeting and something got to come off the list and you have flooring, countertops, and a backsplash, the backsplash should be the first thing to go, because that's the least inconvenient to add after you move in. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. So moving on, you will sign a contract. Once you sign the contract, you have to put a deposit. Depending on the program, the loan program that you're going through, if it's FHA, conventional, USDA, things of that nature, that will determine, and what the builder requires, that will determine how much you have to put down as a deposit. You can also negotiate your deposit. You can. So let's say they want $10,000 and you only have $7,000, you can offer the $7,000, and the sales agent for the builder can go to the sales manager and see if that's something that they will approve for you. Okay. So these are things that I want you to really, really think about. I know it's a lot. There's a lot to take in, but definitely feel free to ask questions in the chat if you have any questions as we're going through all of this information. Okay. So phase 5 of the your house is being constructed. Now, if it's an inventory home, typically, and let me back up with inventory home, because there's two types of inventory homes as well. You have an inventory home that's like ready now, but you also have an inventory home that will be available within a certain amount of days. So let's say, this house is done now. That's the house that's going to give you the best benefits, is the most, discounts on it. Then you have a house that's going to be ready in 2 months or 3 months. That's still an inventory home. And the reason I say that is because you don't have the opportunity or the ability to negotiate any or customize any of the options, but it's still an inventory home. The builder already selected everything. It's just not done yet. And then you have the to be built. So if you're looking at construction, in the phase of construction, depending on how far along your home is when you go under contract, there are certain processes that you will have to undergo. So if the home is already completed and you're buying new construction, essentially it's going to take you between 30 to 45 days to close. And the reason it takes you that long is that's literally how long it usually takes to get your loan processed, right? So you're just literally waiting for your loan to get processed, and then you can move in. If that is you and you're buying a home that's already done, then essentially you have what's called your new home orientation. And during your new home orientation, that's when the builder will walk you through the house. They'll tell you about everything. They'll tell you where the main water shut off. They'll tell you how to work your sprinkler system if you have one. They'll show you where the sewer line is. They'll show you all of the things. They'll present the home to you. And then you also have an opportunity to mark up any imperfections that you see. We call this the blue tape walk as well, where they'll offer you blue tape or green tape to mark different things. So if you see a ding or a paint scratch, or maybe something, the window isn't working, sliding, things like that, you have the opportunity to do that. Now, usually that new home orientation is done 1 week before closing. And then the week of closing, you will have your final walkthrough, and you use that final walkthrough as a time for you to go back and make sure that everything that you marked up was actually done. All right. And that's not enough during your final walk. That's not a time for you to go find new things, even though sometimes you do, because people are making people. That's good, Marjorie. Yeah, it's a lot, but I go through a lot, and thank you for saying that. But yeah, and your new home orientation usually takes an hour to 2 hours for you to go through, and then your final walkthrough is usually 30 minutes, because a lot of times you have your closing schedule right after, or it's the day before closing. I'm telling you now, I prefer for it to be the day before closing, because I ain't gonna lie, they don't always have it together, y'all. Sometimes it still be stuff that has not been done, and they had a whole week to fix it. So I want to know at least a day before. That way, that gives them another 24 hours to get their life together, okay, and have it done. So you have that walkthrough. Now, if your home, that when you purchase it and it hasn't had the drywall installed yet, you're also going to get a pre-drywall walkthrough. And essentially, especially if you're doing a to be built, you will have this walkthrough. And usually, if I have anyone that's doing a pre-drywall walkthrough, you can have an inspector come just to make sure that everything behind the walls has been done correctly. So bring your inspector. Remember, I can't stress this enough. They build these houses fast, and sometimes, they don't always get it right. Bring your inspector, but this is your opportunity to make sure that all the options that you chose are actually in the house. So, like, sometimes they'll forget that you wanted a shower. I mean, you would hope they didn't get that far in construction that they forgot to put your tub versus, a shower. But things do happen. So what I tell people, when you're going to a pre-drywall walkthrough, especially if you did a to be built and you selected all your options, bring your option list and I check it off. I say, okay, the extra outlet that I ordered is there. The shower head with the tub is there. Yep, is there. You go through and you just check to make sure, because once they put the walls up, it makes it a lot harder to correct. And you don't want to have to go through that. We want this process to be as smooth as possible. So the more educated you are about the process and what needs to happen, you can kind of eliminate some of the obstacles later on. Okay. So that's really, 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 really important. So the phase 6, which is closing and move in, throughout all of this, so your pre-drywall walkthrough, your new home orientation, through all of this, you're still working with the lender to get your pre-approval and get the final clear to close. And then closing day, you just pretty much sign the necessary documents, you pay all of your closing costs if you have any, and then you officially basically own a home, and then you get to celebrate, right? And so let's talk a little bit more about some of the people who are going to be involved in this process with you. I won't stay too long on this, because there's quite a few people that you do encounter when you're buying new construction. And some of these people you would not see on the resale side. For example, you do see a real estate agent. We already know what a real estate agent does, so we won't get into that. You do have the builder's sell representative, also known as the new home consultant. It's very important that if you're buying a new home, you should have your own agent. Remember, the new home consultant that works for the builder, they're the ones that's going to help facilitate the sale. They're going to tell you about all the options, all of the incentives. They're the go-between between you and the actual builder when it comes to negotiation, but they work for the builder. So they're not going to tell you what they have in their back pocket as far as what they can offer you. They're going to give you what the builder offers. And if you don't ask, they don't tell, right? So you should have your own agent that is going to negotiate on your behalf with the builder's sale representative to get you more. So it's very important that I see a lot of people, they go into these models and they work directly with the sales agent, which is not totally bad. But why not have someone who can work for you for free? because the builder pays their commission. So you need to have someone on your side that's looking out solely for your best interest. Not saying that the builder's agent isn't either, but at the end of the day, they still work for the builder. Okay. So you should still have your own agent that can negotiate more and be that person to kind of help you navigate the process. You always have a lender. So one of the things that people need to know, the differences between the people that you will encounter when you're dealing with the lender. So the loan officer is the person usually that takes your initial application. They talk to you about all your options when they pull your credit and things like that. But they also have a loan processor. A lot of times, a loan processor will be the person that you talk to the most, because they're the ones that are collecting all your documents and preparing your file for the loan officer to review to submit to underwriting. Okay. And that brings us into the underwriter. The underwriter is a third party individual that will review all of your documents, right? When they get the documents, it's clearly on a totally, unbiased manner, which meaning when they get your file, it doesn't even have a name on it. It just has all your information, might have a number, it may have an address, right? And so their job is to review all your documents and just make sure that it's complete and do their due diligence to make sure that you thoroughly can qualify, you thoroughly approve, you're providing correct information. Okay. If you live in an attorney state, you may have an attorney. You also can hire an attorney if you want to assist you. And give me a second, y'all, because I do need to plug up my phone for Instagram. Instagram, you guys may get cut off. I'm just letting you know because I have a low charge on my battery. But I'm going to try and go as fast as possible for y'all. But you can get an attorney to review your contract, and for a lot of states you have to have an attorney. It's just part of the process. There is a home inspector. Home inspections are not required when you're buying a new construction home. However, I highly recommend you get a home inspection. I can't stress it enough, and you probably heard me say this at least 4 or 5 times already on this training, is that these homes are not perfect. They're built within 4 to 6 months. A whole house is built within 4 to 6 months, and there are human beings that are building these houses, so they're not perfect. So get you a home inspector. You will have to pay for their services up front, but they do typically catch a lot of the things that you wouldn't normally catch. For example, when you're doing your new home orientation, you're not looking at the plumbing, you're not checking all the electrical box. When you get an inspector, they're doing that for you. So they're just double, triple, quadruple checking the work that the builder has done. And I've had it where plenty of new construction homes, the inspectors have found issues. In my own home, and I didn't even realize it myself, my cabinets in my laundry room were too low, and like the washer and dryer were pushed out, and it didn't seem too crazy because they still pushed in enough to where I can walk past and get through the door. But my inspector was the one that pointed out that they're supposed to be a lot higher. Guess who had to uninstall and reinstall my cabinets? The builder. These are things you wouldn't want to have to come up after you done bought the home and now you're living in it, trying to enjoy it. Now you got to call the builder to do these things. Okay. So get you a home inspector. If you're doing a to be built, you will have a design center consultant. Basically, they're there to help you pick out all your finishes and make sure that everything matches. And they're kind of like a, interior designer assistant type thing. So you will have that person if you're buying a to be built. You do have a construction manager / project supervisor. That's the person who's in charge of building your home. So when you're doing your walkthroughs, you will have that person to walk through the house with you. That's the person that if you have that home inspection report, your agent, because you're going to get an agent, right? Your own agent is going to send that report to them to make sure that they fix all of the things that your inspector found. Now, just so disclaimer, not everything that your inspector finds the builder will fix. A lot of times they may have their own standards and say that's not required based on code, but 9 times out of 10 the builder is going to fix what's on your report. Okay. You do also have a title person, the title closer. So this is the person, once you've gotten through the process of your loan being approved, they're the person that's going to reach out to you to schedule your closing. They're going to give you your final numbers, things of that nature, so that you'll have a smooth closing. They're going to also help facilitate your signing of your paperwork so that you can get your keys. Okay. So this is basically essentially in a nutshell your home team. And these are all the important players that you're going to encounter when you're buying a new construction home. Okay. So let's talk about financing options. I won't go into too much detail because this is essentially the same when you're buying resale. But again, you have the same loan programs that you have when you're looking at a resale home. Okay. You got conventional, you got FHA, you got VA, you got USDA. So if you want to go in more detail, we do have financing 101 on Monday. So I will have a lender who will cover all of these in great detail. If you want to see what the qualifications are and things like that, but we won't get that far, okay, today. Builder financing, this is where I mentioned to you that if you're looking to take advantage of the different incentives that the builder's offering, they have their own financing company that offers the conventional, the FHA, the VA, the USDA loans. Right now, actually, DR Horton in Tampa, Florida area, they just released their new program where they're offering down payment assistance. And on top of that, their down payment assistance program has a rate of 5.75. Now, I will pause right here to parenthetically digress a little bit to let you know that a lot of times when you're using down payment assistance, the interest rates are a lot higher. So you're always going to get you're typically going to get a better deal as far as your interest rate when you have some skin in the game, you're putting some money down. Anytime you're asking for all of the money from the other party, they're going to charge you because now you're a risk. They're looking at you, and let's just be real. They're looking at you like, hey, you don't have no money saved. You're looking to get all of this finance. You're a risk for us getting our money back. So on the back end, we're going to charge a little bit more just in case you default. And so typically, not always, you're going to get a higher interest rate. So DR Horton has their down payment assistance program at 5.75 interest rate, and that's actually not bad given the market. Okay, so builders have deals and you can always take advantage of them. Okay, and so the interest rates right now, like I told you before, a lot of the builders are running stupid deals. 2.99, I've seen 3.99, I've seen 3.875, I've seen 5.99. Like they're doing all of this plus offering closing cost incentives. Just so you know, it costs to buy the rates down. And so when you have the builder buying the rate down that far, and just so you know too, on a resale home, you cannot get the rate that low. And I won't go into too much detail because it can get a little complicated. But the reason is because a lot of the builders, because they have their own company, they bought these mortgages up in advance and they're able to pay like in advance, meaning before the market got crazy, they're able to buy down some of these rates in order to so that they're crazy low right now. You can take advantage. Why do you care about the rates? Is because 2.99 on a $300,000 house is a lot less than 4.99 on a $300,000 less as far as the mortgage payment. And guess what? If your market is fairly expensive, let's say $300,000 doesn't even exist. That's a fixer upper. If you're looking at a house that has 2.99 interest rate, that gives you more buying power, meaning for that same payment at 4.99, you can buy a $400,000 house at 2.99. I hope that makes sense. Yes, usually I'm responding to a comment question here. Is there a fee for requesting extra outlets in the room? Typically, there is a fee. There is. Like any upgrades outside of the standards, there is a fee. And a lot of times the builder will have a list of options and the cost of them. So almost like a menu with different fees for whatever options they offer. But yes, it does typically cost a little bit extra to get extra outlets, but they usually have enough. But you got some people like, my husband, he's IT, so he wants extra everything. And so if you want way more than what they originally offered, they usually charge you a little bit, but it's not anything ridiculous for an outlet. And that's something you probably want to do before. That's one of those things you want to add now because, cutting into your wall after you done close, you may not want to do that. Okay. So that may be worth it to just have the builder do that for you. Again, we talked about down payment assistance already. So we're going to move on and go to preparing for buying a new home, right? I can't stress this enough. When you're buying new construction, especially a to-be built, you can easily go out of budget, get out of budget. Structural options cost and design options cost. The difference between the two, structural is anything where you're changing walls, you're shifting things here, because they need a permit for that. And usually there's a deadline for when you have to make those decisions because they have to submit the permit to the county with those changes in order to get your house built. But there's costs for structural options. Let's say you want a tub instead of just a shower, that can be an extra $4,000. So when you're thinking about buying a home, you need to have your overall budget in mind. And again, do not go crazy in the design center. Remember, focus on the items that you wouldn't want to do after closing. That would be more of an inconvenience after closing. So if you have to shrink down your budget, I always say go first, add everything that you would want. Like when you're going through that menu of options, go through everything that you would want. Then if you have to trim it, start with the items that, aren't as bad to add after. Because, remember, the builder has a markup for these things. You can usually get it outside a lot cheaper, but you just got to think about it. Do I really want to pay for floors out of pocket after I close? And how convenient is that? Okay. So those are the things that you want to think about when you're thinking about how can I trim this list to kind of get closer to my budget if you've gone over budget. Okay. Remember, I told you there's a difference between there's a base price versus total price. And so base price is before you add all those options. So when you see something and you're a person that's going to be adding options, just factor in your budget to figure out, okay, how low of a base price do I need to be looking at to factor in all the things that I want. Okay. So we're going to move on from that. And I want to, and we already talked about prioritizing, structural, how you can prioritize your structural upgrades and things of that nature, and focusing on design with long-term benefits and things like that. So, you want to evaluate the quality levels when you're looking at the options that you're choosing. You'll go to the builder, and when you go to design center, they'll say a level 1. You'll hear level 1, level 2 type material. So like cabinets, level 1, level 2. That refers to the quality. Higher quality, more money. So think about this when you're looking at different options and what you're choosing, but the design consultant that you're going to be meeting with can help you with all of those things. Now, when you're looking at your payment and you're thinking about your budget, you also want to think about your community fees. Remember, I told you have HOA fees. So depending on how many amenities you have in your community, you have HOA fees. Typically, HOA fees are less expensive on single family homes versus a townhomes and condos. The reason is a lot of times in those townhome and condo communities, they're taking care of more of the maintenance. So if you're in a townhome community, you don't have to maintain your grass. The HOA takes care of that. Sometimes in those communities, they actually also include water, trash, and sewer. A couple communities in Tampa alone, as part of the HOA fee for townhomes, they actually also include internet, cable, water, trash, and sewer. And in the lagoon communities, they also include access to the lagoon. So just know that when you're dealing with those types of benefits, you're going to pay a little bit more. Versus if you're looking at a single family home where you have to maintain your own yard, you have to pay your water separately and all your utilities, the HOA may not be as much. It may be $66 a year. So when you're thinking about whether to buy condo, townhome, or single family home, think about your budget as a whole, and your agent and lender can help you kind of make the right decision for you based on your needs. Okay. In Florida, I'm not too familiar if this exists in other states, but I know it's very prominent in Florida, specifically Tampa. You have CDD fees. That stands for Community Development District. Your CDD fees, basically what that means is when the builder bought the land, they borrowed money. Now, it doesn't always happen, but most of the builders, when they buy the land, they borrow the money from the county in order to develop the infrastructure in the community. So all the lights, the roads, things of that nature, they are borrowing the money from the county to develop those things, and they borrow that money in the form of a bond. The CDD fee is you paying back that money. So essentially, the builder is transferring that debt back onto the homeowners, and that debt is divided based on the size of your lot. Typically, you will pay a CDD fee for 30 years. Now, there's two parts of your CDD fee. There is the maintenance portion and then the debt portion. The debt portion is usually paid off in 30 years. And then the maintenance portion is the maintenance of that infrastructure, and that's for a lifetime. So whenever you sign a contract, you'll see in that contract how much of it is debt and how much of it is maintenance. And just know that you're going to have it for a long time. Okay. So this is something that is very prominent in a lot of the new construction communities, and you just want to be aware of it. Now, if the community doesn't have a CDD fee, the builder will advertise that. They typically do, because it is a selling point, because guess what? That lowers your monthly mortgage payment. You don't have to pay a CDD fee. Your CDD fee you will see on your tax bill. So if you log into the county records and you go to your tax bill and you just narrow it down, you'll see that CDD fee is part of your tax bill. Okay. So that's something that's very important when you're considering new construction. There are additional fees that you have to factor into your monthly mortgage payment that may make your payment higher. But I mean, when you have the builder offering 2.99% versus resale and you're paying 6%, the payment actually probably in most cases will still be a lot lower. Okay. So those are just some of the things that you have to deal with when you're thinking about buying a new construction home. Okay. So I want to stop here as part of part one, because I did share a lot of information. I wanted to make sure that this was only an hour because I don't want to overwhelm you. I know we've been talking about a lot of things, but I want to just kind of ask you, because this is our next step where I talk about researching the builder, looking at reviews. We kind of touched on that a little bit, but I do want to get into more detail because I also want to cover some of the questions you need to ask builders when you're considering a builder, because not all builders are created equal, right? So you get what you pay for. And so those are some things I want to kind of dive into more on part two. But I want to ask you, do you have any questions for me in regards to anything that we've covered or that you would like to see covered, maybe in the part two? And feel free, you guys on YouTube, Zoom, to talk to me, talk back to me. I don't want to feel like I'm just rambling and just turning your ear off. And if you have questions, feel free, you can put it in the chat. Or do you want me to just keep going? Let me know. How about you on IG? How are you guys feeling? Any questions?
Hello, Royce. This is Angela.
Hi.
I just have a question. I know you said how important it was to have an inspector to look through the home when you're ready to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I would like you to tell me, just how do we go about that, finding a reputable home inspector, and what that cost would look like?
Okay. Great question, Angela. So the inspector typically is someone that your real estate agent can help you find. They usually have a list of people that they work with, and they can recommend an inspector. I do it for my clients. I recommend inspectors. I also provide a list of inspectors that some of my clients have used, not necessarily the people that I normally use, but if you want to kind of shop around, because right now inspections have gone up, but usually depending on the price of your inspection depends on the size of the home and what you're getting inspected. And that can range anywhere between, mid 200s to upwards of like $600. And when you're doing that, depending on what the inspector finds, you may need to get subsequent inspections. So for example, and this doesn't necessarily apply to new construction in most cases, but one of my clients, they had to get a mold inspector to look at like some moisture that was in the home because the inspector kind of flagged it. So you may need to get multiple inspectors. If you have a pool, let's say you're building a pool, you may need to get a pool inspection. And most of the time too, When you get a general inspection, the general inspector will inspect all of those things. But if you do get a pool inspection, it does cost a little bit more. But you can also Google inspectors as well. But my best recommendation as far as how to find an inspector is to just have your real estate agent who you're working with um, refer you to one. Now, if you're just going directly to the builder, they're not going to have anybody for you to call. They're not. They're not. They probably don't even want you to have anybody because it's an extra layer for them. And just so you know, too, a lot of the builders they put restrictions on when you can actually have your inspection. So make sure you read your contract and what's needed, because they create all these extra layers, and I don't think they do it to kind of hide anything, but it just kind of complicates the process more. And they just want to make sure that there's things that they have in line in order to have it done. For example, whenever I have to get my inspections done and it's the outside inspector coming to a new construction home, they want to see their license. They want to see their liability insurance. There was one time I had a builder who wanted their name as the beneficiary on the inspector's liability insurance for that inspection. And you want to make sure that you provide, your agent can help you provide all of this information to the builder so that your inspection request can get approved. And it has to be within a certain time frame, because sometimes if you don't let them know within a certain time frame and it's written in their contract, they won't let you have the inspection, because anybody that comes onto the property is a liability if they get hurt. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. I would just like if I could follow up a little bit. So with these inspections, I know you talked about inventory, you talked about ready bills where they're considered inventory, even though they may not have the drywall up. You say. So, I mean, would you suggest that an inspector go in and look at that, or wait till the home is completely finished? Would it make sense to have them go through and walk through? Because you mentioned that the inspectors look at the plumbing and electrical, and you can really see that when they're first putting it in, as opposed to after it's done. So when would you suggest that an inspection be done, or would you suggest that to be done, like if you're waiting for that?
So if you're buying a home and it's a to be built, you usually, if you did a to be built, you should have two inspections: the pre-drywall inspection and then the final walkthrough. Well, the new home orientation. Your inspector, you need two inspections. You need a pre-drywall inspection, and a lot of inspectors offer that, and you need the final inspection. And so I recommend that you do that, because to your point, it's definitely the best time, because all of the walls are down. You can see everything. You want to make sure they installed it properly, because once the walls are up, the inspector can only guess what they did and make sure that it's done right. But what I would tell you is if you are getting a pre-drywall inspection, getting an inspector that has a background in construction is ideal. And your agent can also help you with that. But it's ideal. Now, if you buy an inventory home and the walls aren't up yet, and you're buying it within the time frame that you can go and have a pre-drywall inspection, get that inspection then too. And definitely I would tell you to use the same person, because they saw it when the walls are down, and they're going to look at it again when the walls are up and the house is done. You need two. I always tell my people to get two. If I had two on my house, I did both.
Thank you.
Yep, because sometimes the clamps that they put for the connections to the wall and the flooring, you get to see the wires behind. The inspector checks all of that. You need two. For sure. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate you both for being here today, and all of you on YouTube and Instagram. I will be doing a part 2, because there, as you can see, there's quite a bit more information that I can cover, because I can talk to you about different things you can ask for. So if you look in here, the technology, some people don't know that they can ask for, like if you have extra money, let's say your closing costs is $10,000, but the builder is giving you 12. And a lot of times people don't realize it says up to. Your contract is always going to say up to $12,000. And essentially, if you don't use that money, you lose it. So we use it all. So if your closing costs only cost $10,000 and you don't ask for anything else, then you're going to get $10,000. You're not going to get 12. So what I tell people is we're going to use the money, and you need to have a savvy agent, because the builder's agent is not going to tell you that. You need to have a savvy agent on your side that's going to say, hey, let's negotiate. And part of that is having that quote in front of you up front before you even negotiate. And I didn't even mention that earlier. When you're in the process of negotiating, you need to have that quote. So when you get your pre-approval, you pick the house that you want, that lender or loan officer can provide you with a good faith estimate or a loan estimate on what it's going to cost you to buy the house. They'll have the estimate for the breakdown of the payment and what your monthly mortgage payment is going to be. And then they'll also have a quote for all of the costs, the closing costs, and you'll be able to see that bottom line. So you'll know literally right away if what the builder is offering you is enough or not enough, right? Or maybe it might be too much. And if it's too much, let's say on the paperwork, it says it's going to cost you $10,000, but the builder is offering you 12. Hey, builder, I want to negotiate for an extra 1 year of my HOA paid up front. And guess what? They're going to factor that into your closing costs, because it's part of closing costs to pay your HOA fees, right? And now you're using that additional money. You're not leaving any money on the table. So these are things that I'm going to talk about in part 2, some of the things that you can ask for in addition to what the builder's already offering. So with that, I want to thank you both for your time. I don't have a date for part 2 yet. I'm going to get one, but if you're interested in our next class will be on January. Our next class is actually July 7th, and we will be doing home financing 101. So the lender we have coming is Jeff McCarthy. He's an outside lender, and he does a lot of deals with me. He's actually been able to save some of my new construction deals plenty of times, but he will be talking about all of the loan programs that are offered that are coming up, including he probably will also be covering Hometown Heroes. A lot of people don't know that they changed Hometown Heroes back to just being for heroes, because they expanded it last year to include everyone that lives in Florida with some additional criteria, but they just walked that back, and it's only for heroes. So like police officers, military personnel, people like that are able to qualify for that. But there are other programs, down payment assistance programs, you can take advantage of. And for some people, you can move in with no money out of pocket. So think about it. If you get a down payment assistance program, right, that's paying your down payment, and then the builder is paying all of your closing costs, what is there for you to pay? Not much. So these are things that you want to kind of think about when you're thinking about buying a new home. And if you have anybody who would be interested in figuring that out, Jeff will be here to kind of break it all down. He's really, really good at just making everything sound easy and easy to understand. So thank you so much for all of your time. Let me go ahead and show you guys the link. So if you want to book more classes, the link is scrolling on the bottom of the screen for you to be able to go to the training schedule for the summer and be able to look at more classes and just schedule. These classes this summer are all free. I do it every summer. This is the second year that I'm doing it. But basically, I'm just trying to provide, free information. I hope you all find it helpful.
Hey, Royce.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Marjorie. I had a quick question to piggyback off of what Angela was asking about the inspection.
Okay.
So I've been in my house for a few years. I think my warranty has been long gone. But now here it is a few years later, and I've noticed, so I have tile floors, and there's a crack in part of the floor that goes from almost like one end of the house to the other. And it wasn't something that is visible up front, like when, this was a new construction and we got it before, it was built.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go about inspection, and is there anything that I could do on my end to, like, I think I've been here long enough where the builder won't cover that, maybe insurance won't cover that. It's not causing any real damage, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you notice the crack.
Yes. So that's a really, really good question. So one of the things when you probably did your walkthrough, they tell you about hairline cracks, right? And they tell you if you can't fit a quarter into the crack, then it should be fine because you're buying a new construction home, the home settles. So what you're seeing is settlement cracks. However, what you're describing to me is a lot more extreme than that. And so what I would tell you to do is have you been in your home longer than 10 years?
No.
So you still have a structural warranty, and a structural warranty is usually 10 years. So you can still call the builder to have them come look at those cracks.
Okay.
That should be within your warranty. So the foundation, the walls, and the roof are 10-year structural warranty.
Okay.
So definitely give them a call.